My personal educational journey as a Miwok woman has been one of many challenges, and through these obstacles I have realized the significance of education. As a young girl growing up in a single-parent household and raised solely by my mother, as my father passed away when I was just a little girl, my mother taught me the value of education. It was through her experience and upbringing that I became involved in Indian education and attended many conferences, as well as being a student representative for the program. Not only my mother, but also my grandparents served as positive role models for me and helped to instill a strong work ethic. It was through their stories and involvement within the Native community that helped me with my overall purpose and goals in life. As a family, we have encountered many traumatic experiences and have lost many family members. My hope is that through this research study, I am able to honor my ancestors and loved ones that are no longer here and pass this information on to future generations. It is only through their support that I have been able to achieve my personal educational goals, and hope that you gain valuable insight into the area of tribal leadership and education. So here we go with the start of my research journey, as you will see it from my perspective as a Native scholar. What do you believe to be some of the processes implemented by tribal leaders that can be utilized in order to reclaim education within its communities?
Participation in cultural events, participation in circle talks, participation with the tribal leaders, getting not just the youth, but the elders to circle together to ask each other questions. And we a lot of times will participate in specific cultural dances, and then a lot of times people won't see each other until either someone gets married or there's a funeral. The experience of the woodcutter who nobody really talks to might have serious value to someone who's up and coming, who hasn't even thought of how was my house built.
There are lots of groups that I think are focusing on reclaiming language, reclaiming culture in terms of material culture, the know-how of doing things, whether it's baskets or flutes or other kinds of instruments, clothing, dancing, songs, those kinds of cultural aspects. And I think one can go further in that.
We were able to learn about charter schools, and we did some research, and so we were able to come together, only Berry Creek Rancheria, Moortown Rancheria, and Enterprise Rancheria, and form the Ipakani Charter School, which is, we are in the process right now of trying to get more funding to keep it stable, sustain it, and also recruit more students to it, because it also has a huge culture component to it.
What are some of the challenges that tribal leaders face overall?
We have historical trauma, and a lot of people talk about historical trauma right now, but what that entails is that we have this generational malfunction that has become a familial and a tribal dysfunction. So the entire time we had tradition available to us, but because we had a disconnection from it, it was hard for some of us to really get back to that.
I feel like when I work with students and myself as a child growing up, there was certain shame that I had, and I feel like I didn't even recognize that or know that it was there until I was probably hit college. Mm-hmm. And so.
And when you get somebody in there good, tribes turn on each other a lot, and so when you get a good leader, it's hard to take that leadership over. Staying in office, terms, politics now, it seems like it's not the honorary position that it used to be. It's all about politics. And
when you're trying to do what's best for the tribe as a whole, camaraderie is a big one, because as you know, we're tribes and we're different families, and sometimes that's a hard thing because you're dealing with your own people, your own family. And
what types of training and preparation would you recommend for tribal leaders and tribal communities?
I think a training on the values and the traditions and the significant events that have happened in the past with Native people. So a training, let's say, on historical trauma, or let's say training on what are Native traditions, what are specific tribal traditions, that there's a lot of difference between the tribes. So just a general cultural training on what it means to be Indian in the 21st century.
To be self-confident, that means, to me, that you're not afraid to reveal yourself to your people. And I think that the people pick up on that, and they respond to it by a comparable or parallel kind of freedom to be themselves, and it removes a lot of threat, I think, from both sides.
What are some suggested ways for tribes to establish educational programs?
And tribes are always going back and forth, back and forth, back and forth, but trying to make sure that the tribes come together and unite, and keep their leadership focused. And it's hard to focus on one thing. It's always a moving target. But to get and educate our people as a whole and bring back the mentality of the old days, and get our people back united together.
You know, and I was sharing with you on these tribes how some of them sue each other, and some because of gaming or because of something out there that they may not agree with. When it comes to education, and when it comes to healthcare, and when it comes to housing, those are all neutral areas of interest that only we all benefit from. Native people, we have a different learning style since you know, we're being very young, because we have elders involved, we have other aunts and uncles involved, we have other family members involved, and we're more interactive, and we're more, you know, sometimes we just can't sit and listen to what everything is being told to us. We need to be interactive, we need to move, we need to absorb it, we need to become part of it, you know what I mean? Because that's how we learn.
We suffer the kinds of education that we've been taught, which means that it's compartmentalized. It's put into little components, like pieces of a puzzle. It's all separate. And we use those kinds of mentalities, or that kind of mentality, in our leadership. We're thinking that everything's separate. And I think in the Native communities in the old days, we learned that everything functions together. One of the lessons I learned from one of an elder was that, don't forget, nature's your true teacher. And when I stop and think about that, everything works together there. Everything is dependent on the other.
What values and traditions drawn from cultural knowledge are currently being utilized to help transform the next generation of leaders?
But I think I can always tell when a student is connected to their tribal history, tribal knowledge, whenever they have a certain kind of respect about them. Mm-hmm. The way that they respect their elders and different things, we can kind of see it, and it's really neat to see, especially in like younger kids, even if they're in high school and they're being cool and adolescent age, when they can display those levels of respect for someone that they think's older than them. And I see it in different areas, I guess. But there's definitely a wave of students wanting to know more about their tribal background.
Well, they're certainly listening to your elders because they have experience. They have know-how that you don't have. It doesn't matter. If you're younger than they are, they know more than you, period. And it's not necessarily all positive knowledge that they know, but there is a value in listening to them.
Well, I think some values and traditions for one is spirituality and practicing your own ceremonial dances. For example, like the Yuroks, being aware of that we have the brush dance, that we have other dances that our youth can participate in. And also, like, the values is the family, community, that we're a collective culture, and we need to practice that.
What types of leadership skills, styles, and cultural knowledge do you believe are significant and play a role in tribal leadership?
There's a guy named Martinez. I first heard him say this about walk your talk. I think you can talk about sober communities. I think you better be sober yourself.
In terms of leadership, you know, there's a way to have respect within the home, and there's a way to have respect within the community, and I think all of those things interface with each other, that how you are in your home and how you are as an individual reflects in your leadership qualities.
First and foremost is the relational approach to well-being. That we need to have healthy relationships with ourselves and each other, with tribes, with different cultures. That if we're having a maladaptive relationship with the land, that's going to affect us. If we're having a maladaptive relationship with the spiritual world, that's going to affect us. If we're having a maladaptive relationship with another tribe, that's going to affect us. That it's all connected.
I remember when I wanted to go back to school, I had spoke to a tribal elder, and I just felt like I needed to talk to her because I decided to go back to school later on in life. So I talked to her and I said, Aunt Grace, I go, I'm thinking about going to college. And she just kind of stayed quiet, and then she says, well, what do you want to do? And then I said, well, I never finished my undergraduate degree, so I want to go back to to get my undergraduate degree, because I think I might want to go to law school. And she looked at me and she chuckled, and then she says, why do you want to go to law school? Just go live on the res and we'll teach you all the native law you need to know. You know, that's what she told me. And then I kind of was a little surprised that she told me that, because I thought that maybe she was being serious, because it just kind of took me aback. And then she kind of laughed. She says, no. She goes, what you need to do is you need to go back. I'm just joking. You need to go back to school because you need to come back and be a stronger leader for your tribe. She says, because we need you. Don't forget about us. Don't give up on us. We need for you to come back and be a tribal leader, a stronger tribal leader. So.
A little bit about my father, William Franklin. He was one of the Native American leaders in the state of California. He was the first representative for the Heritage Commission, for the governor's office, and he always wanted to go to the schools and dance for the Native kids, because he said they need to be educated, not only in the white man world, but they need to learn their culture. And how else are these children going to learn if you don't go to them and teach it to them? That was always his philosophy, teaching, education.
Ayani ko kawana